Thank you so much.
All right, we are live. Hi everyone, thanks for joining this live stream. Today I am really excited to interview Altaf Ganihar. He's founder and CEO of Snaptrude. I came across Snaptrude a couple of months ago and it's a really promising product. And honestly, I am feel more proud because seeing a company like this coming out of India, it feels amazing that our tech scene is growing in the country. So there are some amazing questions lined up, and I can't wait to share and know the journey of developing Snaptrude and Altaf's background and journey till date. So thank you, Altaf, for your time to do this.
Thank you so much, Mayur. It's a pleasure to be here. Glad to be connected with you. In fact, like I just saw some of your videos before jumping in today to the call. Amazing work, like great interviews that you have been able to get, and really inspiring content for young people to break through the computational design and the intersection of tech and construction, which is in fact the need of the hour, because if we don't change in the 2020s, there isn't much time left for various aspects of construction.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words. So my first question is, can you tell us about your background, where you grew up, and why you chose to study this field? Yeah.
So it's a very interesting path that led me towards architecture design. In fact, so I've always been interested in math and intersection of physics since very early days. I was kind of exploring general relativity, the math behind it, linear algebra, geometry, which is Riemannian geometry, which is slightly more tricky part of the geometry with tensors, etc. And while it was all because of the curiosity that I had to learn all of this math. And when I got in my undergrad, I was got involved in a project which was aimed at reconstructing a cultural heritage site. There's a cultural heritage site in India known as Hampi, which is certified by UNESCO as well. And the problem statement was, how can you digitize it? It's by the tourism ministry of the government. It was backed by the government. So to attract tourists, how can you digitize it so people can have a walkthrough of it and do it in such an automated way that it can be replicated throughout the country for various places with very less investment. So we started exploring photogrammetry, etc. But it was not just photogrammetry. You had to actually build a pipeline which can be automated. So the data comes from photogrammetry, you process it, you store it, it gets automatically categorized, then leads to a walkthrough, which is auto-generated, and people can just start exploring it. And the pilot was done on this side. This led me back towards my interest in math and physics, Riemannian geometry, etc., which I was learning out of curiosity. Started applying it to computer graphics and computer vision problems. And that's where the interesting intersection happened. So we did a lot of original research in bringing in some applied concept of Riemannian geometry. And when we started applying it to these problems, say 3D object categorization, increasing the resolution of point clouds, etc., we got amazing results. Ended up publishing a few international papers. Then and at this time, right, there was another architectural institute also involved in that project. They were looking at the problem from an architectural perspective, and I got to understand the architectural process much more deeply, not just architecture, but the entire 3D modeling process, and realized that not surprisingly, not a lot of innovation has happened in 3D modeling. It's still the same. Still, it's largely driven by professional people who need to know the know-hows of how to use these products. And it's fairly intricate in nature. And kind of VR, AR kind of stuff was picking up at that time. There was a trend. And I think Mayura's job.
I think sorry, my internet is unstable. I'll turn
Sure.
off the video. So yeah.
Okay. So as I was saying, so I started exploring that the 3D modeling part was very static. Not a lot of innovation has happened. And thought maybe during this inflection point where VR, AR, etc., was slightly on the as a trend, it was emerging out. I thought, can democratization of 3D modeling be done? Can a very easy consumer usable 3D modeling stuff can be done, at least for the design and architecture, or say construction, building, real estate industry in general. And I started building a plugin to SketchUp at that point of time. I was still an undergrad. It was just a hobby project, nothing more than that. And I really wanted to pursue my career in academics. So I got into a few PhD programs, was almost thinking that I'll go in, but this hobby project was exciting enough that it gave me the courage to say, let me just explore it like for a year or two and see where it turns out. And I'm glad that I did that. So in the next 2 years, about 2 years that followed, this plugin to SketchUp, I started exploring it in various ways, created a web app to help people like builders, real estate agents, brokers to visualize their property. So what it used to do, it used to just take a floor plan image. Say you just go to a web portal, like I think in the US, Zillow or something, you download a floor plan, feed it into the plugin in SketchUp, it will generate a 3D model. It's not very accurate as such, but enough for people to just visualize, walk around their home, create a walkthrough, which is accessible, say on a phone or say an iPad or a desktop on the web. And spent about a year and a half. And apart from SketchUp, then I got deeper into Revit, building plugins for Revit, started working with a few architectural firms, small, mid-size, and started, I'd already explored the gaming engines, but then started doing it at a much more granular level, Unreal, Unity, etc. for the walkthrough part. Then as I was working with these architectural firms, my knowledge, I'm still an outsider for the construction industry. I don't have a practicing knowledge, but I've been observing or being in the industry for the last 5 years now. And these observations made me realize it's not just that the 3D modeling part is has not innovated or is not democratized. It's actually the design process where the design to construction process is very, very complex and siloed still. For mass scale construction, say not the best architects or the star architects, but if you look at the normal residential construction, which happens, people still end up using 30, 40-year-old tools. And the decision making is very broken apart. You use still AutoCAD, which still dominates the industry. SketchUp still dominates it. It's not that these are amazing products, by the way. If a product is being used 40 years later, it's because the product is really good. But the industry has to evolve. We know it's one of the most massive industries in the world, but there's been just 1% improvement in efficiency. And it's also one of the largest contributors to the climate crisis, which we are facing. And most of these problems, if you look at it, as I analyze, could be attributed back to design. So if you have looked at the McLeamy curve, which is basically just like common sense, which is just put forth in the form of a graph, at the early design stages is when you can actually control things. And the impact of the project can be controlled, be it from the aspect of budget, sustainability, be it efficiency, or even the ergonomics, functionality. All of those can be better controlled at early stages. And at early stages, there aren't any good tools. BIM was supposed to be, actually the entire BIM ecosystem was supposed to bring everything together, remove the silos. Something happened there that BIM just became documentation. It didn't become design. And design was still done the old way. And that's where we saw an amazing opportunity where can you help people design in an assisted way, where you are able to handhold them with data throughout the journey, take that feedback cycle, which needs to happen with all the stakeholders, put it into a single place. That stakeholder feedback can be accompanied with data feedback as well. So imagine you're doing a design, like you just say you're doing a multi-family housing and you want to extend the unit size, say extend a room. You want to analyze how this would impact, say, the compliance, the budget, the occupancy, that like on one side, and also analyze how this would affect the neighborhood, the cut and fill of that site or the site context, say like climate data surrounding the buildings, which is at one small edit unit. So we started building it from this perspective. And one biggest realization was that we cannot do it as plugins to say an existing tool. That's what we realize. We can't do it like it's like adding bandages to existing tools. You can't control things the way you would want to. So we started building it from scratch on a web browser, took the advantage of cloud, and because of cloud, you can make collaboration, automation, and data much more easily accessible. So many APIs can be just plugged in because it's a web interface. And this is where we started setting the foundation back in, it was, I think, late 2017, early 2018. When we started doing this, we got into tech crunch at that point of time that helped us raise our seed round. We are backed by Axel Partners and raised money from some few other angel investors. And that helped us get an amazing team. Actually, I would say that the foundation of what Snaptrude is today, it's all because of a great team which we have been able to fortunately be blessed with. And today it's an all-encompassing, comprehensive concept schematic tool. Would love to actually jump into a demo if you or we can actually take a question and maybe go through it.
Yeah, I think like at this point, a demo makes a really good transition to what you have covered in your answer. So yeah, please go ahead.
Absolutely. Let me quickly share the screen. So once again, I think I should share the entire screen. So just to tell everyone what we are building is we're building a collaborative building design software, which is on the web and is powered by automation and intelligent BIM. I'll go in detail about what we mean by smart or intelligent BIM. So I've got a project open. I'm gonna start with, say, a base template over here. So I've got this the small building over here, a couple of floors, and it's all running out of a web browser. So the advantage is you can actually do this design and modeling even on a handheld device like an iPad, or even view this model on a phone. That's the biggest advantage that cloud and web brings in. So I'm just going to start drawing, say, a stairwell over here. So it has all the constraints and parametric edits which you would typically expect from any CAD or a BIM tool to have. So I'm just going to draw, say, like a lift, all the constraints, etc. are there. So maybe I'll just use this copy tool. 3 copies. So I'm giving an example of a commercial building, but like I'll come back to a residential building as well, maybe slightly later. So maybe let me quickly draw, say, an entrance to the building over here. So this is a plaza, maybe a small water body surrounding it just at the entrance, maybe a small green covering area over here. And at this place, I can see that it's already in 3D. So 2D, 3D goes together like any BIM tool for that matter. Let me start labeling things. So say this is a plaza. It has a lot of automation built in. So it would start taking decisions on your behalf with just a few things. And these are all can be configured based on your usage as well. So say this is what you want it to be a code. So it will start taking the material, start showing you the feedback immediately. So say this is a reception. Maybe rather than just having a single thing, maybe it's a double height. So instead of 3 meters, I'm going to make it 4.5 meters over here. And maybe quickly select these lift, lobby, and stair and copy it to the first floor. What I meant in terms of it being parametric in nature. So at the early stage of the design process, architects love playing around with something like a bubble diagram. They just want to analyze the spaces. So these are all disconnected rooms or masses, the way you would need to have it in the early stages, but can be edited together as well. So I can start quickly pushing, pulling things as you're able to see. So move this wall by this much, maybe start editing the space and start analyzing how things would impact in conjunction with other spaces or also independently of each other's space. And even do things like if I remove this vertex, what are the permutation combinations of, so if I remove it over here, it's going to have a void over here. Maybe I just want to like move it and see how it is breaking things apart. So it's very, it gives a lot of feedback as you're drawing. So I'll just go to the second floor, maybe just draw a space over here. Maybe I'll have a midpoint snap. Say this is another thing which I'm drawing over here. Yeah. And I'll go to the 3D. So we have been able to get to a couple of floors over here. Have a few things. I'll just maybe select the second floor and create some 10 copies out of it for reference. Yeah, so we've been able to do that. Now, the biggest advantage, as I was saying, is not just the modeling part of what Snaptrude can do, but its ability to get data to follow the form. So we have an internal saying, we say that data, it's assistive design, where data always follows the form of the building. So with one click over here, your entire area schedules, which gives you the data related to your compliance system, is automatically available. So it gives you a total FAR, what is achieved, what's the built up area, what's the carpet area look like, and how across every floor over here, the built up area and the carpet area are distributed. And you can even configure the formula of how an FAR is calculated. So you can include, say, you don't want to include a service corridor, just uncheck it and an FAR would get updated. And even things like if you want to even configure the area formula as well, like how your built up area is calculated or a carpet area is calculated, that also can be configured. So it's fairly customizable. You can put it in various geographies that you work with, and again have an exportable Excel sheet coming out of this area statement. And it's real time and dynamic. Apart from this, the another aspect of getting the data is you can actually bring in a site context. So there is a live map built into the system. You can navigate to the place where you're building. So this is somewhere near Washington in the US. So this is where I'm interested in actually building this property out. I'll just check it, and it would bring in the site, but it's actually not just a planar site, it's actually a topography of that place. So you're getting more context around the building which you're trying to play around with. And this is all happening within a matter of few seconds or few minutes. And I've just put it over here, and I can start putting where the datum is. So the cut fill analysis, etc., can also be done on top of this, of where the right land, like what's the right altitude to be able to build around this building. So now, since I have the system in place, this is still a massing study. I can start editing things. Let me just start quickly playing around with the facade slightly. So I'll just maybe select the alternate floors. And very quickly, let me flip it in this way. And maybe I'll just orbit around and quickly start pulling the edge out. So I can do these kind of like mass geometry edits, start analyzing the geometry over here, and even keep looking at how sorry, I just moved it inconsistently. So I can move a face, move a vertex. Say if I want to have some refuse terraces created over here. Since I'd flipped them alternatively, you can start seeing some good facade option that is coming out. And this is how architects actually think. They don't want to worry about the math or the quantitative part. And that's why the feedback gets delayed. And at the end of the day, at times just becomes too late before you actually start looking at the data, and you might actually have to scrap the design. But here, as you are playing around in your own intuitive sense, you're able to start seeing that the FAR is now reached 12.05. Maybe 12 is the limit. Maybe I need to accommodate for it from somewhere. Maybe the built up area and the carpet area, because has to be under certain limit. Those kind of things are actually following you as your design is moving across. And this is just one data point. The site was another data point. But let's go into slightly more detailed aspect over here. So this is still a massing study as I'm able to show it to you. But to say go from here into a full-fledged detailed BIM model with, say, your BIM components, walls, flooring, all of those things, it's just one button away. So I'm just going to click on this create building. It's going to just take a few seconds, and it's going to return a full-fledged BIM model, which will have your, say, a plinth, your internal walls, external walls, slabs, flooring, everything automatically converted from your massing study into a proper BIM model within a matter of few seconds, as you saw. I just went with the default properties, but all the parameters could be changed. So there was an external wall. I choose brick wall with plaster and paint. You could have different types of families of walls. The thickness was 200, internal wall was 100, parapet was 25, and the slab thickness, etc., is 150. But like this all can be changed as well. So the slab thickness over here is 150. Maybe I just want to change it to 250. I just click enter, and very soon you would see that it would update the entire thing while maintaining the floor to floor height, which we have set over here, which is 3 meters generally for the entire building. So the walls, etc., would automatically adjust and become. So now you have an automated system to be able to get from whatever thought process you have, whatever crazy design idea you come up with, into a fairly detailed BIM model. So this is the plan view, and you can very well see how the internal walls, external walls, all the geometry, etc., which is created is fairly accurate. And you can even start looking at the BIM objects much more intricately. So maybe say I select this wall, I'll just go to the object property. It's brick wall with plaster and paint. It's an external wall. These are dimensions. This is surface area, volume. But also I can start looking at the layers of the wall, that it's 200 mm of proper brick with 12 mm plaster, 2 mm paint on both sides of the wall. All of these properties can be changed. So its impact also can be studied in multiple ways. I'll show another data part to be able to show you that. So let me start applying a few materials. Say I want to have a glass facade. So there's a huge library, which is similar to how other BIM tools are. But the advantage is you can actually customize and keep adding things over here. So maybe I'll just start adding some glass facade over here. And the moment I start adding this glass material, I can go into its object properties and see that the structure has changed from a normal brick wall with plaster and paint to glass. And this will also get reflected in your budgeting document. So Snaptrude generates an automated material schedule, which is basically a bill of quantities, giving you the total brick, the total, say we added glass as an example. So the total glass, the kind of screed, tiles, the plaster, the paint going into your slabs or the walls, to even things like there was just one staircase, the columns, all of that, everything is now tabulated and exportable to an Excel sheet at any point of time. And even individually for every component also, you will be able to take it out. So this is just a small example I showed you over a few minutes. I have a completed model. I'll maybe jump right over that. So this is a building which we modeled, which is in New York. So the neighborhood, etc., was also created. So there's a church right opposite to this building, and it is fairly detailed, like the furniture, etc., the test fits, etc. All those things were created. Now you want to start looking at some more parameters of data, which is one is you can one-click create a sunpart diagram at that location, which you have given where the site is. You can start seeing where you can have windows, where glass can be used. How can you minimize energy consumption? Very soon we are looking to add quantitative daylight analysis, so it'll start giving you heat maps, etc., as well on top of the sunpart diagram, and also generate things like analyze the shadows much more intricately based on the calendar year and the time which would go in, and also generate some beautiful presentation views out of the platform if you are impatient to go through a render pipeline and generate a proper say real-time rendering option. So you can walk around, create some beautiful looking presentations which are enough for your first cut presentation output. And even further, let me just go into say the third floor, which is a lot more detailed out. See, this is the third floor. The computer has slightly become very slow, unfortunately. Maybe let me just plug in the power. Yeah. So you can see, like, you can actually create a proper test fit with all the furniture components, and all the schedules, etc., of this thing would keep following you. So you're always doing data-driven design. And there's a huge library of furniture. Also, we support a lot of file formats, which you can just keep bringing in SKP, FBX, OBJ, 3ds files into the system and keep dragging and dropping them into the system as well. And if you want to create, say, some like very good black and white documented drawings, etc., you can do that as well. So this is black and white drawing. If you just want to quickly dimension it out, it's a concept level drawing presentation, not a construction ready, but still the entire mundane work of documenting it in the form of adding dimensions, etc., is totally reduced to a click of a button. So with one click, you can quickly start seeing the dimensions and start having conversations with the real people who matter and improve the design. So the focus is on the design process, not on figuring out how do I trim this, how do I say, which Boolean operation should I use. That is what our aim was. How can we make architecture so seamless that people don't think about the technical aspect, but actually democratize that entire process. So like these are some black and white views which have, so you can create front elevation, side elevation, all of those things which you would typically need into the platform. But so the code doesn't end over here. So the file which is created, as I said, it's a BIM model, so you can actually export it as it is to these normal 3D models, which will go into any of your render pipelines or any other 3D modeling tool. But the BIM model can actually go as a native Revit file with all the families intact, your doors, windows, walls, curtain walls, everything will be properly maintained. So you can actually just integrate. We don't have MEP in the system. So if you want to do MEP and maybe document out the building and actually generate GFCs in a tool like Revit, very soon we are adding IFC and also DWG support as well, because still a lot of the SMB segment uses AutoCAD. So we are adding that support as well onto the platform. So this is with respect to, say, a commercial building. There's still a lot more thing I could have shown you. I have another small example to show you how, say, if you want to start a project from literally a sketch. So this sketch I've just uploaded out of my phone camera. So you can see the shadow is still there. So it's basically a rough design. But this sketch could also be done on an iPad if you have the Apple Pencil. So we have extra support for the Apple Pencil. You can start sketching like how you would say do it, say on a Morpholio trace or something like that. Start sketching it out. But that sketch doesn't end there. You can actually bring it and create, say, a massing study or a plan out of this. So I'm just going to do a few clicks as you're seeing over here. It's actually optimize a few things to generate this plan out of the system. And this, as I said, is a bubble diagram. So you can actually, it's like a Lego puzzle. You can maybe move things around, because since you're at the sketching stage, you're also not sure of if this is the plan which you want to follow. So you can start iterating things out with a proper parametric editor. Say, I'm going to quickly extend this wall from here to here, maybe this room from here to here. So we added this concept of rooms because we felt architects love working with spaces, not just walls and slabs and floors. Those are byproducts of what you need to actually generate, because construction happens that way. But they like seeing things in more usable form, and that's the reason why we stick to having this rooms concept. So I'll start labeling things. Say this is a living room, this is a balcony, maybe this is a kitchen area, maybe we'll have a bedroom here, maybe a dining space, maybe another bedroom over here. Since we don't have a bathroom, maybe let's just quickly draw out a bathroom over here. Yeah, so we have this. Now, what I can do is assume that it's a multifamily housing. Maybe this is just one floor plan unit. I'm just going to quickly create a copy of it. The units work slightly more intelligently. You can start editing one of them, all of them start getting edited. Even though they are just copies, you don't have to create the component group structure. So it automates all of those things. The story generation also, which you saw, is like you don't have to set levels like you do in Revit. It would keep generating your levels as in how you are designing your model. Just flipped it around in this way. Maybe quickly let me snap it over here. I'll just use a drawing tool, maybe draw just one line so the common space is created. So we have created a fairly decent floor plan layout unit. Now at any point of time, you can start editing both in 3D and 2D. I've just largely shown you the 2D edits, but you can start editing them in 3D as well. So I can push, pull things. But since they were all units, were created copies of each other, you can actually start seeing the impact on a more global sense. Even if it was, say, 30 floors, multiple towers that you had, you'll be able to start seeing. And even you can do crazy edits, much more than what I'm showing you. And going from here, say, to a much more detailed plan is just one click away. Maybe I'll just change the parameters over here. So the external wall is 200, internal walls. So maybe internal walls, rather than having brick wall, maybe I'll just go with wood studs, and maybe just click on the create building tool, and it would take a few seconds and start developing the 3D model. with all the details. And maybe I'll just go in 3D. So the internal walls are wooden, the external walls. So it's very intelligent in that way, automates most of your work. A lot of parametric stuff is happening under the hood, and people are able to just see a seamless experience of clicking a few buttons like how they're always used to with SketchUp, Revit, etc. But it's doing all the hard work of generating this. Then you can drop in some few doors, windows, and generate your bill of quantities and detail it out further. So, and then export to Revit, export to DWG, whatever you would want to do, and create some complex models. Yeah, so this is just a very holistic view. Apart from this, we are still doing a lot of stuff. Would love to show you that. Maybe I'll take a few questions from your side, Mayu, and then maybe we can come back to the parametric and the API stuff, which I was discussing with you.
For sure. And I must say, all the time when you were showing the demo, I'm super impressed. Like, I wish I could turn on my video, but like, amazing work, Altaf. Like, so one question I have is the geometry operations you showed were rectangular push pull in 3D. Like, what if like there is like curvilinear form? Is it possible?
Yes. Actually, we are launching NURBS by second week of August. So we still call ourselves in beta. We are not, we still don't say that we are, even though we have like over 3,500 users using us across like about 9 countries, really large names as well. Our version 1 launch is happening next month. It was supposed to happen by end of this month, but it's like, you know how tech is. It always gets delayed. We are changing the UI and launching NURBS, proper NURBS. It's not going to be how SketchUp does curves. It's going to be properly how, say, a Rhino does, because we have a proper geometry kernel, which we partly built, partly we have now started integrating some existing stuff. But till now, whatever geometry stuff you saw was a kernel which was built in-house by a team. Like the team is one of the best engineering teams that you would find in this domain in this country now.
That's awesome. You have recruited some awesome minds. So, like, if you can elaborate more on the geometry kernel, because I'm not sure everyone in the audience might be aware about like how kernel works and how to create one. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, at the end of the day, every 3D CAD, every CAD tool for that matter is underneath its shell has a kernel. Kernel is more like how if people understand how an operating system works. The kernel is where all the interactions happen. So the interface keeps doing a communication back to the kernel and keep getting back the data. Similarly, in CAD application, all the geometry operation, the geometry operation could be, say, people are more familiar with, say, a Boolean operation like a union, intersection, or could be things like trimming a line. All of these things are mathematical operations. So that are packaged into a kernel. That's what it is called as. Because it doesn't have a user interface. User interface is what CAD applications develop on top of it. And this is where the entire magical algorithmic stuff happens. In fact, some of the leading geometry kernels out there in the world power almost 90% of the applications, CAD applications. Even Autodesk products are built on a kernel which was built by Dassault Systems. And even Parasolid, which is another geometry kernel out there, powers all the modern application. Even SolidWorks or say Shaper 3D, which is one of the best user interfaces that I've seen, is powered by Parasolid. So these kernels are something which are like the core of making a 3D CAD application work. Unfortunately, we couldn't use one of this for the main reason that they were built for desktop. Nobody has tried building one for the web. Like, people have tried, but like nobody has successfully been able to build something for the web so you can start building applications. And this is where we had to spend majority of the last 3 years in getting this to work seamlessly. That's why we took a lot of time. We failed multiple times over this course. Just in the last 6 months that we have been able to get a very good, solid, stable version, which is now being able to scale up to about, as I said, 3,500 users using it consistently, creating various different types of buildings on the platform. Like I can go slightly more in detail if you have any question on the kernel side as well.
I think like that gives a really good idea about it. And I'm curious to know, like, since it's cloud based and most of the computation, I assume, is done on the server side, and on client side, the geometry manipulation request is sent. So how about like collaborative 3D modeling? Like, can everyone jump into a web page and do it, or is it under works?
Absolutely, that's the beauty of being on the web. So we have the proper collaboration, real-time multi-user collaboration, multiplayer. So if I just open up a link, share it with all of you guys, we all can start doing designing together on just one model. And there are multiple ways in which we have solved for this. One is follow me mode, which is more like a conversation. So one person is editing and walking you through the model, and the other people are just say commenting, asking for more information. And another mode is where people just start editing things on their own. So you can start giving permission. So this half is yours, you edited, this half is mine. I'll take the ownership of it. And come like together work towards a single concept where you're able to cohesively break the barriers of multi-city offices, collaborating with because construction is something which thrives on collaboration, because it's not just one person who decides everything. There's the consultants, there's the customer, there's the contractors, there's the architect. If the architect, if it's a slightly big project, then you involve an architectural firm which has offices in multiple cities. And because of the pandemic, work from home is the norm. So this is where we were able to solve this problem. So you can actually get multiple people. I don't think so. I'll maybe just show you a very small introductory video which we have of doing that. But I've loved actually if I could have just shared the link with all of you guys, and you could have just, if you had accounts in Snaptrude. So basically you can have multiple peoples like this who are just working on the same model, start commenting things with their cursors. You can start seeing who's doing what, and collaborate in a very intuitive sense. And
Yeah,
on the
I think
curves, right? I have just
that's incredible.
yeah, and on the curves, right? This is the version where the curves is, it's not yet released, as I said, but like this is an internal version. So maybe say you want to do something like a curvilinear stuff, like proper NURBS is what you will be able to create. And maybe let me just close this geometry out, and I'll just go to 3D. It's a proper curve which is created. It's not faceted stuff. And you can create even proper, like if I do some vertex edit kind of an operation, I'll maybe quickly turn it into a mass. Some rules are there in the system because it's a BIM model. So I'll just start editing it. So it'll start creating I think I did it in the wrong direction. Maybe I'll just do it in the vertical direction. Yeah. So it's a proper, even if I move the word, you can see that it's a surface now. It's not just a couple of triangles which all the geometry kernels would create. And this all happening on the client plus server side on almost instantaneously. You can't even see that there is any lag which is there.
Yeah. Sujay has a question, and I just like to ask a follow-up question on this. So the geometry is created, and I have seen most of the web interfaces in 3D like world like use 3JS for rendering and like animation. Like what web-based libraries are you using?
So for the rendering part, we are using an existing package, not 3JS though. We are using another popular thing which is known as Babylon.js. It's slightly different to 3JS, just like the amount of code you write in 3JS versus Babylon.js is slightly less, but like at the scale at which we are working doesn't really make a difference, because rendering plays a very small role in the entire system. It's largely the geometry operation which are all built natively by the team in-house. The rendering is a very small part of the system.
Got it. Yeah. I was just curious to know, because like some of the geometry operations, either one could use like a library and build top of it, or one can like code it from scratch. So it looks like your team did it from scratch. So that's amazing.
We tried pulling in a lot of things which might have been exist, but like the problem is for the web, right? People haven't, there are not much stuff which is done on the web to make it happen. Still, it's largely incomplete. It works in one scenario. It's not very universal in nature. And we thought, let's just pull up our sleeves and do it.
Uh, yeah. And so this question is, does Snaptrude allow for design detail to be explored at a micro level and then to be integrated into or exported as part of beam data quantities or an estimate?
Yes, so we definitely generate estimates right now itself, but like it's not to that granular level that you would expect, say, from a LOD 350, LOD 400 kind of a model. For that, we are exporting to Revit as of now, and as I said, IFC will also come in, so other BIM packages would also come under the purview. However, that is something which is on our roadmap. So we have now been able to solve the entire modeling and the design aspect. We are launching parametric components very soon, so you can actually create your own parametric, say, parametric furniture walls, like parametric stud walls, or parametric furniture library, the way you would codify it in Revit or any other system. Once that comes in, so the other elements also would start, like other parts of the system, like MEP, your plumbing system, electrical system, all of those components can be easily created, and you will be able to go to that micro LOD 350, 400 level of detailing inside the platform itself. And documentation is the only thing which is going to be left. So this is our 1 year, rough 6 months to a year roadmap internally for the team.
Awesome. And like I feel like there are many amazing cutting edge features in your as we saw in the demo. Curious to know like how like the ideation phase and like innovation phase happens in your team. Do you get like feedback from the users, like, or do you have like Monday meetings? Let's everyone dump all the ideas.
It's pretty interesting for that matter. So we've got Amrita in the team, so she's an architect, and Google also has joined us recently. He's also an architect. Uh, I have been in the as an observer in the industry for the last 5 years, so I understand not at the practicing level of architect, but like still know how an operation would work. Spoken to, I don't know, maybe in higher 3-digit number of architects, or maybe even like few thousand architects till now. And Amrita was a practicing architect, so she comes from computational design as well. And the team has very solid geometry background, and they've also spent quite a bit of like 3-4 years with the team. So there's a lot of cohesiveness and understanding of the industry. What we do is we don't look for features from the users, but we start observing for problems that they're actually facing in the current workflow. So basically we try to map it out, like they want to go from point A to point B. The point A is input, the point B is output. They might have an idea of how they want to get from A to B because they've been doing it for a long time, but we understand from a tech perspective how this could be done in one very intuitive sense. Intuitiveness is a very high priority inside the team for launching any feature. It should be such that anybody who was say not even use a 3D software, just using AutoCAD, comes up and starts using this, should be able to get familiar and start using it. And then ability of the technical team to implement that intuitive feature based on the product document, which we could, like we just create a few sketches of how the user interface would flow like, and how the feature would be developed. And in terms of the team meetings that we have, so we're slightly more engaged. We talk twice a day. One in the morning, we have a stand up in the morning, stand up in the evening. It's not very long, but still it just helps people stay connected and keep discussing what they're doing, any problems they have. Another person can just quickly jump in. And because of work from home, we miss being in the office where you can just like pick someone's brain so easily because you can just walk up to their desk. But here, there's no walking up to the desk of another person. You have to schedule a call. So that's the reason why we are doing this 2 calls, one in the morning, one in the evening, and people find it comfortable as well. But apart from that, also everybody is approachable to think around ideas, etc. But in terms of innovation, it's largely driven through understanding the customer journey. So we try monitoring the customer journey as closely as possible, keep taking those point A to point B, and have conversation internally of how can that be made better and more intuitive and much more automated. So it's flows into the natural workflow of how a designer works.
God. I have some questions about like the business and the startup side of Snaptrude, but I think it might be a good idea we could like talk about the APIs and the advanced features.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me just quickly, where do I have it? Let me just share the screen and I'll show you. So one glad thing which we started doing is, in a way, the entire architecture of the product was created. It's very atomic in nature. Every operation, which we call it as, is can be exposed as an API. Say drawing a room, or say converting it into a BIM model, adding a door or a window, something like that. And we've just started documenting it out and started exploring it internally. So Amrita, as I said, like she's a designer as well. So she wrote a configurator just to try it out, like with what, 20 30 lines of code, and like this configurator was created of 6 floors, trying to play around with rooms. They're still very much rectilinear, but you could create any shape and form. Let me just make it 2x so you can start seeing the changes pretty rapidly. So this is what you can do, but like this was done very quickly just to test it out. And apart from this, there was a single story cute thing. And we are now starting to see, we're getting a lot of inbound inquiries about getting access to these APIs. If anybody wants to talk further, like you can definitely, I'll have my coordinates shared at the end, so you can talk to us and maybe we can figure out how you want to use them as well into the workflow. So configurators or generative design is something which I think is something that people want it done based on their office requirements, and APIs are the best way to make it happen. This was for the curtain walls. As you can see, it's just like 24 lines of code. So just give the number of parameters you want and the number of like millions, etc., which you would need, and it would compute those. And I think it even computes the millions if you don't give that parameter, or you can force feed it as well. This is one aspect, but of late, Kuldeep, who's a senior engineer, did a very interesting thing. So he said, like, given us, like, this was done not even for the user purpose. Every time they had to test out a feature, they have to create a floor plan, and they found it to be too boring. So he just went ahead, used the API, wrote a script, given a site, can we just create a floor plan? So it's so like he basically has written this function. We can keep creating as many layouts as possible. It can be explored in so many ways. The parameters can be changed. You can actually have a floor plan configurator properly created with these things. So given the size, it'll just start creating this stuff for you. Yeah. So basically, if anybody wants to talk on the APIs, would love to speak with them.
That's great. I think like APIs will definitely help other developers to like build applications on top of it. So I assume you might be also releasing like the documentation of like what are the commands we can access, and so
yeah.
Okay, awesome. One last question I have on the technical side is like, what are some advanced features or goals you have like 3 years from now where Snaptrude will stand?
Our general vision of the company is, can you streamline concept to construction workflow? Today, we are at the concept stage of the design process, getting into the detailed design development, but we're already having conversations with people of even getting into the construction part, because it becomes a natural extension of it. Currently, if you look at the industry, as I said initially, it's very siloed. You would have to use multiple tools. Actually, using multiple tools is okay, but those multiple tools do not talk to each other. A CAD DWG file format goes into a SketchUp, but it's still 2D. Like, you would have to still model everything in 3D. That doesn't go into Revit because it's basically not BIM geometry. You would have to redo everything. Then for construction, it goes as PDFs, which gets coordinated with like basically markings on that drawing, say on some of the construction cloud softwares, or like PlanGrid, Bluebeam, or worse on papers, which is a nightmare. Now this entire workflow, because we are on the cloud, can be done literally from the beginning. The document can actually be a 3D BIM model. You can have various sections, plans, etc. created on top of the platform. Just share it. Somebody can, like, even today, Snaptrude can be accessed on a phone, but it's view only, and you can view some of the data points like areas or object properties, what the dimension, surface area, volume, etc. is. So somebody is on the site, sees on the phone, raises an RFI right there, because it's collaborative platform. Multiple people can start editing, commenting together. So he just raises an RFI, and back in the office, the person who is coordinating with the person doesn't have to go back to a BIM tool out of that PDF and recreate entire thing, get the approval done, then submit back the PDF as a sheet, and then the work would go ahead. Here it's an integrated BIM platform. Says this door, something is missing or wrong with this door. The person just gets a notification. He quickly makes the edit on that BIM model. It goes on to, say, his team leader or manager who needs to just approve it. He just approves it. The updated documents or drawings are ready. So this entire integrated system is what we are looking to build in the matter of next, say, 1.5, 2 years onto the platform.
So I need to ask on this, like, you're talking about collaboration. Is it collaborating with multiple sectors like plumbing, mechanical, or any, construction related documents? Is it colliding them, or it will be colliding in future, something like that?
Very, very soon in the future. So, like, we are trying to add other aspects. This is architectural design today. The other aspects of the design will also be added, maybe in the next 6 months to 9 months. As I said, parametric component is something which is a priority right now. Once that becomes the foundation of all the MEP stuff that will come in, and there onwards it's just basically documenting it out, as much granular documentation that you allow on the BIM model.
So what is the future prospect in the terms of, are you going to look towards clash detection, or you're going to look up to something related to artificial intelligence, that you go on site, protrude your Snaptrude and just check, okay, if the site is measuring right or not, something like that? Or it's a clash detection where people can collide and find the clashes between the MEPs and your architectural model?
Clash detection, of course, will be part of the integrated workflow, because when multiple people are designing together, you can very apparently just run a script on top of that and keep getting the clashes in real time as well. It's a very small application, but on the site, it's basically having a single source of truth. Like, if you look at how developers work, engineers, they have one Git system where people are just seeing the changes of what is happening. That is something which can be actually replicated even for construction. And surprisingly, the way I've been closely looking at this industry and other industry, every industry believes in prototyping before they actually build out. Here, unfortunately, it's either very difficult or just not being thought well. You go to product design, UI UX design, Figma, which is a very great tool out there in the segment. You actually do all the designs, you build components, you prototype it, and that prototype can actually be tested with users before you go ahead and start building. And there you're not building something which will cost you, say, $1 million. Like, construction is always, like, a large construction site, like, it'll cost you a few millions of dollars to build it out. Here, the prototyping is very superficial. You don't look at how a person living there would feel like, to that granular level. I think that is what we want to replicate inside the system. And then you start coordinating on that single source of truth on the side. So there are not much debates around, has this been thought through or not? It's always going to be thought through, because you're working on a single source of truth. That's the vision which we have. And artificial intelligence or machine learning, for that matter, is just, I think, basically going from point A to B. If machine learning makes sense to do that, of course, yes, like that can be built out. So it's basically helping your customer or user go from point A to point B. If machine learning is the solution or the answer to that, maybe why not? Maybe AR is a good solution for that, when you want to impose a BIM model with an actual site. So I think we will explore it as we start going in exploring that segments, maybe a year down the line. Let's see how like there's a great team. They would come up with better solutions to that.
And And also, like, I feel like there's so much things to tackle in AC. So when there's also a phase where startups get into like, let's solve everything, and it gets distracted from the original part. So like one step at a time.
Exactly.
So uh,
Exactly. There's so many things to be done. So many things can be improved. And that's a good thing that there's so many startups emerging out during this time. A lot of good people, like you've taken this initiative of inspiring so many people. If all of these people start getting in and trying to solve even some of the problems, it's a multi-trillion dollar industry with so much contribution to the world's GDP. You start taking small pieces of it and start solving those problems, like it'll help the industry as well as the entire world and the planet for that matter.
I see. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like I was talking to Brendan Pachuca in the last live stream, and he was like, in AC hackathon, every developers come together and makes a prototype, but when it things get back to normal, no one works together to create like a solution which would be beneficial for the industry. So,
Yeah. So
uh,
here in AC, going from a prototype to product is a long journey. We have realized it a lot many times.
yeah, definitely. It's this production challenges is like even in my current working, I'm seeing that it it takes a lot of time and which is underestimated. So I want to know like if what were like some downside or the struggles of your development, like if there are any.
Oh, they're quite few. It's like if you ask a startup founder how many downsides you have seen, it'll be like uncountable. So every alternate day there would be something which would always be going wrong. On the technical front, so we underestimated the difficulty in building the geometry kernel part. We underestimated by quite a lot. And we thought we would be able to pull it off maybe in a year and a half. It took us 3 years to be able to do that. We had to rewrite it, I think, 3 times. Like just literally scrap it, start from scratch, and do it. And that's what got us delayed. But like better, we've been able to pull it off now than never.
Got it. And uh, tell us about your fundraising story. Like it's AC Tech idea, and like where the was the market criticized, like were the investors like super critical about investing in this area, or what were some questions they asked?
Fortunately, no. So initially, when we have tried being in the stealth for a long time. You don't see that we talk about ourselves a lot or about our fundraising, largely because we wanted the product to mature out, get developed. It's just that now we are launching. We're trying to be out there and try communicating a lot. At that early stage during the late 27, early 2018, when we raised our investment, it was more about the potential of if we pull off whatever we are pulling off, what kind of an impact it would have. And by that time I had got a prototype built for that sketch to 3D aspect. It used to work fairly well. There were a few users who were just using it for that purpose, and that promise was there that it can be pulled off on a scale. And that conviction is what led us to get our first seed investment. Then we got another couple of follow-on rounds from the same investors in 2019 and very recently, 3 months ago also. Largely based on customer, like in 2019, it was based on the customer interest. So we still have a lot of people who keep asking us for various features. So that customer traction and engagement has uh, helped build that conviction that this is something which is desperately needed by the industry. And we've been able to prove it time and time again to our investors, and that has led to their continuous support.
Got it. And were there any like features or things you wanted to do but had to compromise because of the resources and the time frame?
There are a lot of them actually. So basically, even today, like it's still a very small team. We're a team of about 14 people holistically. We still have to compromise and prioritize a lot of things. Our customers, especially the small and medium-sized businesses, keep coming back to us with documentation. Say just give us documentation. We won't even need another tool. Like you almost do most of the stuff. Just give us documentation. We want to do that, but like we need to solve some really fundamental problems in the roadmap which exist, which are also for some really large enterprise users as well. So a lot of balancing keeps happening, and every startup founder, if you ask, would love to have a magic wand where he has unlimited time in the day, unlimited resources, where all of these things get parallelly built. But I think focus is very important for a startup at early stages. So you got to pick your battles, and you got to pick those battles where you can win really well, and survive with those things which you have built. Get enough users, enough customers, enough validation in the market, that you can show the promise that the other things will be built, because we've been able to pull this off.
I see. Like, is it right to say like it's a good strategy to be like focus on a niche and like be a top in that niche instead of a generic software doing everything and competing with other?
Absolutely. Actually, if you this reminds me of the Paul Graham quote, where he says, it's really good to have one user loving your product than 100 people liking your product. There's a huge difference between this. So always, I think it's better to satisfy a small set of users in a way that they're delighted, not just they found it okay. And that is what will give you a ladder to success, if you know what your long-term strategy is like. So I talk about it, since this is a technical audience, I won't take the very generic. It's like gradient descent. So invert the gradient descent, not for minimizing but for maximizing. So basically, you're climbing a mountain, you want to reach the top, but you need to keep capturing your smaller hills first, and keep analyzing at every step, are you moving up or down, and keep following that track. In a very generic sense, I equate it to a blind mountaineer who is basically blind. He just can take one step and see if he's moving up or down, and his aim is to eventually reach the summit. And I see that even in the general AEC industry, a lot of good stuff is happening in niches. Site planning has become site planning and building configurator has become a really good business in itself, and also a good customer pain point that a lot of people are solving. Even things like energy modeling, etc., which is super important. That's again a niche, like slightly wider niche, but that problem had to be solved, and people are doing it really well. I think a lot of this niche solutions, when you integrate them together, fortunately, you will have a very massive impact on the industry in general.
Also, like you said, the strategy of Snaptrude, this makes to make every minute countable, and this makes me as an end user using it, me allowed to spread architecture to very small levels of India or in the world. Like it reduces the cost to the immense level there, where I can just give it to everybody, like, come here, I'll make it in 1 hour, come, I'll make a good house for you, a good space planning for you, rather living in some discrete areas, which is just a terrible situation in India.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's not just India. I'll tell you, it's a global problem. So every building shouts that it has to be designed, and there are studies which shows that 40% of the maintenance problem of a building can be solved during the design stage, and are due to bad designs. If you don't solve it at that time, the cost impact and the sustainable impact is really massive. And this can only happen when you democratize design to good design, actually. So there is a difference between just design and good design, to that level that anybody can access it. You don't need to have, say, a grasshopper or a dynamo expert in every room to design every building out there. It has to be democratized. Really large enterprise firms can afford to have a computational designer in their team, but again, he cannot be involved in every project that they work with, right? The solution is, can you automate the process? Also, the world doesn't have enough architects to deal with the amount of construction we are doing. So just to tell you about India, right? I think about 40, which is 4 million houses are supposed to be built every year. And according to the COA, there are about 60, 70,000 architects. You imagine the proportion, and this is just homes, not even counting commercial, etc. Per architect, the amount of work that needs to be done, and a similar figure exists even in US and UK as well. and not even accounting for, say, Africa and Southeast Asia and other growing regions. So at that level, the only solution is how can you democratize design and optimizing, like looking at it as an optimizing problem and optimizing for all of this aspect is data and automation. And glad that we found that insight and have been spending our time building it.
They're gonna do wonders to the world.
Hopefully, yes.
And also like from my experience, I've seen like many times because of affordability, people just go to contractor, okay, design, build my house, and if we can do good design with afford in a budget, then I think everyone would like to be live in a very energy efficient and like good uh, environmental experience house. So definitely.
Absolutely. I think that's what is missing. Like after I've been with architects, right? I now start seeing buildings from that perspective. And I feel most of the buildings, mass buildings, shout that they could have been designed so much better. Like daylighting could have been so much better. The cross ventilation, like just some basic stuff has been messed up. And like it has to be solved, right? Like you can't live in subpar buildings when you're spending each building, say a multifamily housing building, costs millions and millions of dollars. Like you can't compromise quality at that stage. And I'm seeing it time and again. It's being compromised.
Awesome. And like, how does a day in your life look like?
Oh, so that's very random on everyday basis. Unfortunately, I try to code still, but I don't get involved in the core aspects because I feel that like I'm not up to the mark of what the team is. Like they're like fantastic geometry experts and engineers out there. So I try to take, even if I do code, very small adjacent modules which don't really have a major, can be plug and play. But generally, it's about meeting the team, talking to them, ideating over the roadmap on working with customers, who are we prioritizing, and also demoing to customers, working with them, building plans around there, and just managing the business as a CEO. That's what keeps me occupied, at least during this time. Unlike the early days when I would just like still code with the team.
How do you feel being an entrepreneur? Like going back to 2012 and right now here, how it feels?
So actually, I have never worked, right? I've never worked in even after my undergrad, I just started up. I started exploring. So I don't know how it feels like to work not as an entrepreneur. That's a good thing, and I feel that this is how I would be for my career choice. Like I'd always forever be an entrepreneur because the amount of impact that you can have when solving a problem is massive. And learning, you can't just like every day is you're always learning, but like surrounded by some great people. So that in a way I'm fortunate to be an entrepreneur, and don't feel that how different it would have been if I'd taken the other path, which was to get a PhD, join academics, or maybe just do something else.
Awesome.
That is great.
Yeah, I think like we have reached almost an more than an hour mark. So I'll take like few more questions if Richa, Sujay, Ashwin you have, and I'll also check if there are questions on YouTube. But is there anything else like we didn't cover in this interview and you would like to share or talk about?
I think I've covered from the product perspective most of the things. Just on the API, if somebody wants to reach out to me, maybe I'll just quickly have my coordinates displayed. Let me just open that up. So I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm just started spending some time on Twitter off late. So you can reach out to me on either of the places. LinkedIn is where I still continue to remain to be active. And if you're looking at my email ID, I'll just like display it very quickly. Present. Yeah, so these are my coordinates. Like, just feel free to drop me a line here or on LinkedIn. Would be happy to respond.
Awesome. And I'll just ask like two fun questions before we end the interview. Like, what has been the most motivational book you have read or impactful book?
I'm reading a lot of business book in the last 2 years. Uh, like the best book in the last 2 years has been very tactical, but like motivational wise, I had read Kite Runner long time ago. Uh, like on the fiction side, it was really inspiring. Apart from that, I spend a lot of time still learning physics, exploring physics and math. Basically, I'm revisiting my entire quantum field theory basics, the Feynman path integral. I still do like to derive those equations back again. Just keep exploring. They are in a way kind of motivating to me, just to see how the universe is so intricate, detailed, and follows patterns in nature. That is like my a thrill or a cheap thrill apart from entrepreneurship that I explore.
Mayur, before you ask your funny question, I have a serious question here. Okay, now
Okay.
this is this is related to like right now your product Snaptrude. So can we customize the different elements of a same category like as a designer? Like in that detail, can we work right now?
Yes, you can actually have, say, sunshades, masses, beams, columns, even create mullions. All of those details can be created. So this just this project which you're seeing behind in the graphic, right? It's a commercial building, so it's a 6-story building. Most of the things were customized, like say this the staircases. It was a generic staircase, but you had to add these custom elements, the railings, the all those detailed elements can be done. Still a lot more detailed examples are there. Maybe let me just see if I can find some examples.
Yeah, maybe in your tutorials are there some of these we can
Yes,
look through.
there are a lot of examples of these in our Instagram page and even the tutorial pages that you can see.
Cool.
I'm unable to find these. Okay, here. Let me just quickly share the screen. Yeah, so this was a hotel project. You can see like interiors, etc. You can do facades of this kind. This is like the landscaping, etc. Also, which you can do. This is like a commercial building, like slightly detailed facade. This is still cookie cutter, not a lot more detail, but you can do, say, this kind of sloping roofs, luxury villas, etc. The staircase you can see is very customized. You can have a lot of these elements done. Even interiors you can design as well, like say cupboards, shelves, all of those detail. Get the quantities out of that, like how much plywood is going in. Those kind of stuff can also be done on the plan. So rendered, this is a commercial. This is so this also slightly more like you can do stuff of this kind.
So we can do renders as well, is it?
You can export to rendering software. This was done in Twinmotion, but the
Okay.
model was created in Snaptrude. But we are also trying to have an integration to Enscape too, so you can do live link there.
Perfect. That sounds great. Mayur, over to you.
No problem. Thanks for the question. In the chat, like if in order to get access to API, should one email you or it will be on the website?
It's not yet on the website because as I said, it's basically we've just made it available internally. Just trying to talk to people and give them access on a case-to-case basis of what they want to do. So that's why, like, you can just contact me and maybe we'll, like I or maybe somebody from the team will schedule a call with you and just try to understand what you're trying to do with it and explain you what it is, because it's not super well documented. So we'll need to explain you a few things.
Great. And this just suddenly popped in my mind. Like, are there any other startup ideas you have in mind which you wanted to pursue in future, or yeah?
Actually,
or not
no.
able to pursue till now because of the restrictions of the investors?
Actually, I've been super married to this idea since, because I have spent personally what over 5 years just in the AC industry. I can't imagine myself apart from Snaptrude. Like it's basically become my entire day revolves around Snaptrude. So I haven't actually thought about what you said, like thinking about other startup ideas or like other problems till now at all. That's a gift, and also like shows how I have not been able to get that ideal time to think generally as well.
That's quite focused.
It's a self-realization as well. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, hi Altaf. First of all, actually, I'm new here, so thanks a lot for taking out time. So actually, I was a lot inspired by your Snaptrude introduction and all. So in my scenario, I would like to share my point of view, like what I faced. So actually, there was something like there was some home design issue was there in my Bhopal area. So because you said earlier that there is a need to democratize the design, so that's what highly needed at that time. Now I realize that this is something that is the awesome work we are doing. So if it is democratized, then like we will benefit a lot because so yeah,
Great.
thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for the really
Yeah,
kind words.
yeah, yeah.
I I was just about to say, like, since maybe last 5 years you have been like living Snaptrude in the day and even dreaming about Snaptrude in the night. So it might be all the world is around Snaptrude. So it's quite interesting, and it also inspires like how motivated and passionate you are about this problem. So
Great.
it's a
Thank you so
great
much.
journey.
Thank you so much.
All right. So I think that's it from my side. It was pleasure interviewing you, Altaf, and I apologize for all the misconnections,
No
internet
worries.
problems along the way. But it really inspires me, especially like in the demo. I was like, "Ooh, this is a new feature. This is one more cool feature," and uh, amazing development. And yeah, as I said earlier, it feels so proud to see an architecture tech startup emerging from India doing this kind of cutting edge work.
Great. Thank you
That
so much.
inspires a lot
Thank you
for
so much,
us to
Richard.
think.
Really.
Yeah.
It's actually a pleasure talking to you as well. Keep up the good work. Like I think you're inspiring a lot of people with your content. Keep doing it. I think a lot of people will jump and join tech and the intersection of tech and construction. So fundamental issues can be addressed. And glad to have spoken to all of you. Thanks, Richa, Ashwin, Sujay, and Mayur as well.
Awesome. Thanks for the encouraging words. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great.
Bye
See
bye.
you
Bye
around.
bye.
Bye
Have a
bye.
nice day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good luck with
Yeah, thanks.
Snaptrude.
Yeah.